Refusing gold on Apache land, the cowboy waited. 14 years later, the tribe repaid him. The sun was just beginning to rise over the wide open plains of the southwest, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A lone cowboy rode slowly along a dusty trail, his horse's hooves kicking up small clouds of sand. He was a man known for his honesty and courage, a man who preferred the quiet of the land to the noise of towns. People in nearby settlements often spoke of him with respect. They said he was a man who did not cheat, who kept his promises, and who never took what did not belong to him. But today he had no thoughts of reputation or respect. He was simply riding, letting the wind blow against his face and the wide desert stretch endlessly before him. As he followed the trail, he noticed something unusual. The ground ahead looked disturbed, almost as if someone had been digging recently. His curiosity got the better of him, and he guided his horse closer. There, half buried in the dry earth, he saw a small pile of gold coins glinting in the morning sunlight. He dismounted, his heart beating a little faster. Gold! Real gold! Scattered as if someone had left it behind intentionally. He knew at once that this was no ordinary discovery. The desert had a way of keeping its secrets, and finding gold here was rare. The cowboy knelt beside the treasure, running his hands over the cold, hard coins. He thought about what this gold could mean. It could set him up for life. He could leave the hard work of ranching and wandering behind. Townspeople would envy him, maybe even fear him for his newfound wealth. He could buy horses, land, anything he wanted. But as he looked up, he noticed movement in the distance. Figures were approaching him slowly, walking with a calm but careful presence. It was an Apache elder, followed by a few others from the tribe. They did not rush or yell. They came with quiet confidence, the way people do when they know the land and respect it. The elder stopped a few feet away from the cowboy, his eyes steady and knowing. He gestured to the gold on the ground. "That does not belong to you," the elder said, his voice calm but firm. "This land, these treasures, they are ours. They have been here long before you or your people arrived. They are not meant to be taken." The cowboy straightened up, brushing dust off his pants. He looked at the elder and then at the gold. He had been tempted before in his life, but something about the elder's calm authority made him pause. He had always believed in doing the right thing, even when no one was watching. And now, in the presence of these people who knew the land better than anyone, he felt that pulling the gold away would be wrong. I understand," the cowboy said slowly. "But it's just sitting here." "I didn't take it. I could leave it as it is." The elder shook his head gently. "It is not yours to decide. It belongs to our people. You must leave it." "If you take it, you take more than gold. You take trust, honor, and respect. These things are more valuable than any treasure." The words struck the cowboy deeply. He thought about the life he had lived, the years of working hard on the ranch, helping neighbors, staying true to himself. He had never taken what was not his, and he had always believed in fairness. Now, faced with this moment, he realized that respecting the tribe's claim was not just about following a rule. It was about doing what was right. He slowly stood up, looking once more at the gold. The temptation was strong. He could imagine the townspeople's faces when they saw him with this treasure. They would call him lucky, clever, maybe even rich beyond measure. But then he looked at the elder and the others standing quietly behind him. There was a calmness, a wisdom in their eyes. They were not asking for anything personal. They were asking for respect, for fairness. Finally, the cowboy nodded. "I will leave it here," he said. "I won't touch it. It is yours." The elder smiled faintly. It was not a smile of joy, but of quiet approval. "You have made the right choice. Many would have taken it without thought, but you have shown respect, and respect is worth more than gold." The cowboy felt a strange sense of relief. He had expected anger, disappointment, or even mockery. Instead, he felt a calmness, as if the land itself was acknowledging his decision. He mounted his horse slowly, giving one last look at the golden coins resting undisturbed in the sun. Then he turned and rode away, leaving the treasure behind. As he left, the townspeople, who had been watching from a distance, began to approach him. They were curious, some skeptical and some openly mocking. "Why didn't you take it?" one asked. "You could have been rich!" The cowboy shrugged, his eyes steady and unshaken. "It wasn't mine to take," he said simply. "Some things are more important than gold. Honor, respect, and doing what is right. Those things last longer than coins." The townspeople shook their heads, some laughing, some muttering under their breath. They did not understand. They had always measured wealth by what one could hold in their hands. The cowboy, however, knew that true wealth was measured by actions and character, by how one treated others and respected the land. That night, the cowboy camped under the stars. The desert stretched endlessly around him, quiet and still. He thought about the day's events, about the gold, about the tribe, and about the choice he had made. He knew that in the long run this decision might not bring him riches in the way others understood them, but it had brought him something else, a sense of peace, a feeling of having done the right thing. Days turned into weeks, and the story of the cowboy's decision began to travel. Some townspeople spoke of him in admiration, others in disbelief. They could not understand why anyone would refuse gold. But the Apache tribe never forgot. The elder returned to his people and recounted the story, praising the cowboy for his honesty and integrity. The younger members of the tribe listened in awe. They had learned that respect and honor could cross the boundaries of culture, that a stranger could act in ways that reflected the values of their own people. For the cowboy, life continued. He worked hard, tended to his horses and cattle, and kept to the trails. He rarely saw the tribe again, but he carried the memory of that day with him. It reminded him that choices mattered, that small acts of respect could ripple far beyond the moment. Even though he did not gain gold, he gained something far more valuable. A story of honor that would follow him for the rest of his life. He often thought about the land, about the sun rising over the plains, about the quiet strength of the tribe and their elder. And in quiet moments, he wondered if someday, somehow, life would repay him in ways he could not yet imagine. But for now, he rode on, content with the knowledge that he had done what was right, and that sometimes waiting and trusting were more rewarding than any treasure. As the cowboy disappeared into the horizon, the desert returned to its quiet stillness. The gold lay where it had been found, untouched, a silent testament to honesty and respect. And though the world around him moved on, the story of the cowboy who refused gold on Apache land began to take root, growing slowly, waiting for the right time to bloom. 14 years passed since the cowboy had refused the gold on Apache land. In that time, much had changed. Yet in some ways, nothing had changed at all. The plains remained wide and quiet. The rivers still carved their paths through the desert, and the sun rose and set with the same steady rhythm. But the cowboy himself had grown older. His hair was streaked with gray, and his face bore the lines of hard work and long days under the sun. He had become a man shaped by patience, resilience, and a steadfast sense of right and wrong. He continued to work as he always had, tending to his small ranch, caring for his horses and cattle, and living a simple life. He was not rich in gold or land, but he was rich in experience and in the respect of those who knew him. People in nearby towns still spoke of him, remembering the story of how he had refused the treasure in the desert. Some thought he was foolish, but many admired his integrity. He had become a quiet legend, a man whose actions proved that wealth was measured not in coins, but in character. The cowboy often thought back to the day he had met the Apache elder. He remembered the calm authority in the elder's voice, the quiet dignity of the tribe, and the glint of the untouched gold in the morning sun. Those memories had stayed with him, a reminder that the right choice was not always the easiest choice. He also remembered the townspeople's disbelief, their laughter, and their insistence that he was missing out on a fortune, but he did not regret his decision. In fact, he felt a sense of pride, knowing that he had acted with honesty and respect, even when no one was watching. Over the years, he had occasionally heard whispers about the tribe and their gratitude. Travelers passing through would mention that the Apache elder had spoken of the cowboy, telling stories of his fairness and integrity. At first, he thought these were just rumors, small tales that grew taller with each retelling. But as the years went by, he began to notice a pattern. Every so often, someone from the reservation would speak of him with respect, hinting that the tribe had not forgotten his actions. Still, the cowboy did not expect anything. He had made his choice and moved on. He had no thought of reward or repayment. Life on the ranch was not easy. The cowboy faced the challenges of the land every day. Droughts tested his patience, storms threatened his livestock, and illness occasionally struck the horses or cattle he cared for. But he faced each difficulty with the same steady determination that had guided him all his life. He worked hard, knowing that nothing worth having came without effort. And though he lived modestly, he felt content. He had food to eat, a place to sleep, and the freedom of the open plains. That, to him, was wealth enough. In the nearby towns, life went on as usual. People came and went, rumors spread, and the years rolled forward. The story of the cowboy's decision became part of local legend, told by parents to children as an example of honesty and respect. Some of the younger generation admired him from afar, dreaming of living a life guided by similar principles. Others still dismissed him as a fool who had turned down gold, unable to see beyond the coins themselves. But the cowboy never sought their approval. He lived for himself, for his own sense of right and wrong, and for the quiet satisfaction of knowing he had done what was honorable. Meanwhile, the Apache tribe continued their lives on the land. The elder who had met the cowboy was growing older, and he often told the story of the man who had refused gold. He spoke of how rare it was to find someone outside the tribe who valued respect and integrity as much as they did. He reminded the younger members that true honor was not measured by wealth, but by actions, choices, and the treatment of others. The story of the cowboy became a lesson passed down through the years, a tale of patience, honesty, and the power of doing what is right. The years brought change in other ways as well. Some members of the tribe left the reservation to work in towns, to seek education, or to explore new opportunities. Others stayed close to the land, tending to their traditions and preserving their culture. Through it all, the story of the cowboy remained a quiet thread, connecting them to the past, a reminder that even small acts of integrity could have lasting effects. One day, after another long season of hard work on the ranch, the cowboy was visited by a stranger. The man was young, respectful, and cautious in his approach. He introduced himself as a messenger from the Apache reservation. The cowboy's first thought was curiosity. He had not seen anyone from the tribe in years, and he wondered why this young man had come now. "The time has come," the messenger said simply, his voice carrying the weight of importance. "The tribe wishes to speak with you." He had heard rumors over the years that the tribe had never forgotten his choice, but he had long ago dismissed them as tales. Yet something in the messenger's tone told him this was different. There was a seriousness, a purpose that could not be ignored. "I will come," the cowboy said finally. "Lead the way." And so he did. He saddled his horse and followed the young man across the plains, riding toward the Apache land he had once visited so many years before. The journey was long, and as he traveled, the cowboy reflected on the passage of time. 14 years had changed much in the world, but the lessons of honesty, respect, and patience remained constant. He thought about the gold he had left behind, the elder who had spoken to him, and the quiet satisfaction he had felt in making the right choice. When they finally reached the reservation, the cowboy was greeted not with ceremony or fanfare, but with a sense of calm and dignity. Members of the tribe, both young and old, stood quietly, observing him with respectful curiosity. The elder who had spoken to him years before was there as well, now older and more fragile, but still full of wisdom and presence. He stepped forward, his eyes meeting the cowboy's with a mixture of warmth and pride. "You remembered our words," the elder said softly. "You remembered respect. You remembered integrity. And for that, we have watched over you even from afar." The cowboy felt a wave of emotion. He had never expected anything in return for his choice. He had acted out of principle, not for reward. Yet now he realized that his actions had not been forgotten. The tribe had observed his life, noting his honesty, his hard work, and his dedication to what was right. The younger members of the tribe looked at him with admiration. They had grown up hearing the story, learning that integrity and respect were more valuable than gold. They saw in the cowboy a living example of the lessons they had been taught, someone who had chosen principle over profit, and in doing so had earned their respect and gratitude. The cowboy listened quietly as the elder spoke, feeling a mixture of humility and pride. He realized that the world was full of choices, some small and some large, and that the decisions he made had consequences far beyond what he could see. His refusal to take the gold had not only preserved the tribe's trust, but it also created a lasting bond between them, one built on respect, understanding, and honor. As the sun began to set over the reservation, the cowboy reflected on the years that had passed. 14 years had brought challenges, hard work, and quiet moments of doubt, but they had also brought growth, understanding, and patience. He realized that life often tested people in ways that were not immediately clear, and that sometimes the greatest rewards came not in gold or silver, but in the knowledge that one had acted rightly and honorably. The tribe had been patient, waiting all these years to show their gratitude. And now, finally, the moment had arrived. The cowboy felt a sense of anticipation, mixed with curiosity. He did not know what form the repayment would take, but he trusted that it would be meaningful, reflecting the deep respect that had been building silently for more than a decade. As night fell over the plains, the cowboy made camp on the edge of the reservation. He sat by the fire, thinking about the journey that had brought him here, about the choices he had made, and about the people who had watched him all these years. He felt a quiet sense of peace. Life had taught him patience, and now, in return, it was teaching him the value of waiting, of trusting, and of believing that good deeds do not go unnoticed. In the quiet of the night, the stars stretched across the sky as constant and steady as the lessons he had learned. The cowboy knew that the next day would bring answers, that the tribe would finally express their gratitude in a way that words alone could not convey. And though he had lived 14 years without expecting anything in return, he now felt the stirrings of hope and anticipation. For 14 years he had lived honestly, patiently, and with respect for others. And now, as he watched the fire flicker and the stars shine, he realized that sometimes the world has its own way of repaying those who act rightly. The moment was coming, and he was ready to receive it with the same integrity and humility that had guided him all his life. The next morning, the cowboy awoke to the soft glow of sunlight, filtering through the trees on the edge of the reservation. Birds sang quietly in the distance, and the air carried the earthy scent of the land he had once ridden across 14 years ago. Today felt different. There was a sense of purpose in the quiet, a feeling that something long awaited was finally about to happen. The cowboy saddled his horse and followed the young messenger who had arrived the day before. As they rode deeper into the heart of the reservation, he noticed the careful way the tribe moved around him. There was no haste, no unnecessary display, only calm awareness and respect. Soon they reached a clearing surrounded by tall, sturdy trees. The elder who had first spoken to the cowboy so many years ago stood in the center, along with several other members of the tribe. Their faces were calm but serious, each showing a sense of anticipation. The elder's eyes, wise and steady, met the cowboy's, and in that gaze the cowboy saw something he had not expected: recognition, gratitude, and a deep, unspoken respect.
"You remembered our words," the elder said gently, his voice carrying over the quiet of the clearing. "You remembered respect."
You remembered integrity, and for that, we have watched over you, even from afar. The cowboy felt a wave of emotion rise in him. He had never acted for reward. He had never sought acknowledgement or recognition. His decision to leave the gold untouched had come from the heart, guided by principle rather than ambition. Yet now, standing in front of the people he had once honored with his choice, he felt the weight of their appreciation. It was not just gratitude, it was a bond forged silently over 14 years, built on trust, respect, and shared humanity. The elder continued. Many would have taken the gold without thought, but you understood that some things are more valuable than wealth. Honor, respect, integrity. These are treasures no one can take from you, and they grow stronger with each passing year. You have shown patience, humility, and courage in the years since. And now, it is time for us to show our gratitude. The cowboy listened in quiet humility, unsure what the tribe would offer him. He had come expecting perhaps a simple gesture, maybe a token of appreciation, but not anything grand. He had never imagined that 14 years of patient living and quiet integrity could create such a moment. From among the tribe, a younger member stepped forward carrying a simple but carefully wrapped bundle. The cowboy could feel the weight of it, though he could not yet see what was inside. The elder gestured for him to approach. "This is for you," he said. "It is our gift, our way of showing that your choices were not forgotten." The cowboy unwrapped the bundle slowly, revealing a carefully crafted wooden box. Inside, gold coins gleamed softly, but it was not just the gold that mattered. The box also contained tools and items of practical use, items that reflected the skill, care, and thoughtfulness of the tribe. There was a beautifully woven blanket, a set of handcrafted knives, and a small bag of seeds for planting. Each item was meaningful, each symbolizing respect, tradition, and the bond between the cowboy and the tribe. He looked up at the elder, overwhelmed by the gesture. I don't know what to say," he whispered. He had never expected anything in return, and now he realized that this was more than just repayment. It was a recognition of a lifetime of choices guided by honesty and respect. The elder nodded. "You do not need to say anything. Your actions have spoken for themselves. We have waited patiently, watching you live your life with the same principles that guided your choice that day. And now, we honor you in return." The cowboy felt a warmth spread through him, a mix of gratitude, humility, and pride. 14 years ago, he had acted out of principle, and now the consequences of that choice had come full circle. It was not just about gold or gifts. It was about being seen, truly seen and recognized for living a life of honesty and respect. Other members of the tribe stepped forward, sharing their own words of appreciation. They spoke of how the story of the cowboy had been told and retold over the years, a lesson for the younger generation. Children had grown up hearing about his decision, learning that integrity and respect were more valuable than any treasure. The cowboy listened quietly, realizing that his actions had rippled through time, touching lives in ways he had never imagined. The elder then gestured toward a piece of land near the clearing. "We wish to offer you a place here, should you choose to accept it. It is a small piece of our land given in trust and friendship. It is yours to use, to care for, or to visit as you wish." The cowboy's eyes widened. He had never thought in terms of ownership beyond his own modest ranch. This gesture was not just a gift. It was a symbol of trust and mutual respect. He felt honored and humbled. I cannot accept such generosity," he began. But the elder interrupted gently. "Acceptance is your choice," the elder said. "But know this, it is not just land or gold we offer. It is our friendship, our respect, and the recognition that you have lived rightly. That is worth more than anything you can hold in your hands." The cowboy thought carefully. 14 years had passed since he had first refused the gold, and in that time he had learned patience, humility, and the quiet rewards of living with integrity. Now, faced with this moment, he understood that acceptance would not diminish his principles. It would simply acknowledge the bond that had formed over the years, a bond of respect and trust between him and the tribe. He nodded slowly. "Then I will accept," he said finally. "Not for the gold or the land alone, but for the trust and friendship you offer. That is more valuable than anything else." The tribe smiled, and the air seemed to lift with a sense of completion, as if a circle that had begun 14 years ago was finally closing. The cowboy felt a deep sense of peace. The journey had been long, and the wait had been difficult at times, but now he understood that the passage of time had made the reward even more meaningful. Over the next few days, the cowboy spent time with the tribe, learning more about their ways, their traditions, and their daily lives. He shared stories of his own experiences on the plains, of hard work, challenges, and the lessons he had learned along the way. In turn, the tribe shared their own stories, teaching him skills and knowledge that had been passed down through generations. The exchange was not just about gifts or repayment, it was about connection, understanding, and mutual respect. The cowboy marveled at the care and thoughtfulness in everything the tribe did. The gifts they had given him were not random. Each item had meaning. Each story carried a lesson. The gold coins were a reminder of the moment he had refused temptation. The blanket represented warmth and protection. The tools symbolized skill and hard work. And the seeds embodied growth and the future. Together, they told a story of honor, patience, and respect that words alone could never convey. As the days passed, the cowboy realized that the true reward was not in what he held in his hands, but in what he felt in his heart. He had been patient, had lived with integrity, and now, finally, he was recognized and valued for it. The bond between him and the tribe had grown stronger, rooted in shared values and mutual respect. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, the cowboy sat by a fire with the elder. They spoke quietly, reflecting on the years that had passed. "You have lived rightly," the elder said softly. "Your choice long ago was not easy, but it showed wisdom beyond measure. Many would have taken the gold and forgotten respect, but you chose otherwise, and for that, the world remembers you." The cowboy nodded, feeling a sense of completion he had never expected. "I only did what I believed was right," he said. "I never imagined it would lead to this." The elder smiled. "And that is the beauty of integrity. You act rightly because it is right, not because of reward. Yet the world has a way of repaying those who wait patiently and live with honesty. Today, you see the result of your choice 14 years later." The cowboy looked into the fire, watching the flames dance, and thought about the journey that had brought him here. 14 years of waiting, of living simply, and of maintaining integrity had led to this moment. The reward was not just gold or land. It was respect, recognition, and the deep satisfaction of knowing that he had acted rightly when it mattered most. As the stars appeared one by one in the night sky, the cowboy felt a sense of connection not just to the tribe, but to the land, to the people, and to the choices that had defined his life. He realized that true wealth was never measured in material things, but in honor, integrity, and the bonds we create with others. And so, in the quiet of the night, surrounded by people who respected and valued him, the cowboy understood the full meaning of his journey. The gold he had once left behind had been more than a treasure. It had been a test, a lesson, and a bridge between two worlds. By waiting patiently and living rightly, he had received something far greater than he could have imagined. The trust, respect, and friendship of an entire community, and the knowledge that his life had mattered in ways he had never seen before. After the days of quiet reflection and meaningful exchanges with the tribe, the cowboy felt a calm certainty settle over him. The gift he had received, gold, tools, a blanket, and seeds, was more than just a repayment. Death to the turncoat. It was a symbol of trust, respect, and recognition for the man he had been 14 years ago and for the life he had lived since. But more than that, it was a reminder that patience, honesty, and integrity always carry their own reward, even if it takes time for the world to show it. The cowboy spent the morning walking through the land the tribe had offered him, studying the rolling hills, the small streams, and the quiet groves of trees. He thought about how this land, like the gold he had once refused, was a symbol. It was a testament to respect, and it now belonged to him, not in a sense of ownership that would claim it from anyone, but as a recognition that his choices had mattered. The land seemed alive with quiet gratitude, and he could feel the connection that had formed over more than a decade. During his time with the tribe, the cowboy learned much about their daily life, traditions, and values. They welcomed him into their circle, not as a visitor or outsider, but as a friend and honored guest. Children listened intently as he shared stories of his life on the plains, and young men and women asked questions about the choices he had made. He realized that the lesson of refusing the gold had become a bridge between cultures, teaching them about courage, patience, and doing what is right. In turn, he learned the deep wisdom of the tribe, the care with which they treated the land, and the respect they held for one another and for the natural world. The elder, now older and slower in movement, but still filled with quiet strength, guided him through the stories of the past. He explained how the choice the cowboy had made all those years ago had become a story passed from one generation to the next. Young members of the tribe often spoke of him with admiration, using his example to learn about honor and respect. The cowboy felt a warmth in his chest, realizing that the decision he had made on a simple day in the desert had created ripples far beyond what he had imagined. Over the course of several days, the cowboy began helping the tribe with practical matters. He assisted in building fences, repairing small structures, and even helped plant the seeds that had been gifted to him. These seeds were symbolic as well. They represented growth, patience, and the promise of the future. Together, they worked on the land with quiet determination, each person contributing what they could. The cowboy felt a sense of fulfillment he had rarely experienced, knowing that his efforts were part of something bigger than himself. At night, the tribe and the cowboy would sit around fires, sharing stories and lessons from the past. The elder often spoke about the importance of patience and integrity. "Life tests everyone," he would say, "but the choices you make define who you truly are. A person who acts rightly even when no one is watching is always rewarded in the ways that matter most." The cowboy listened and nodded, reflecting on the years he had spent living honestly, working hard, and treating others with respect. He realized that while the reward had come in material form, the true value was in the relationships, trust, and mutual respect that had grown over time. The days turned into weeks, and the cowboy began to understand the deeper meaning of the tribe's gift. The gold he had once left behind had not been forgotten. It had been preserved along with the story of his choice. By refusing it, he had shown that some values are worth more than wealth. And by living honestly over the years, he had proved that his integrity was not a momentary decision, but a way of life. The tribe's repayment was not just about giving him gold, it was about acknowledging the man he had always been and the life he had led. As the cowboy continued his work and spent more time with the tribe, he noticed how his presence had begun to inspire others. Young men and women who had once been skeptical of outsiders now looked at him with curiosity and respect. Children followed him, asking questions about the land, the animals, and the choices he had made. He realized that his story had become more than a lesson. It had become a living example of courage, patience, and integrity in action. One morning, as the cowboy helped repair a fence along a small stream, the elder approached him with a quiet smile. "You have done more than we ever expected," the elder said. "Your time here has strengthened our people, taught lessons to the young, and reminded us of the value of patience and honor. You are not only a friend, but a part of our history now." The cowboy felt a deep sense of humility. He had never sought recognition or reward, yet here he was, being honored not for wealth or power, but for living rightly. He realized that this was the true measure of success, not what one has in material terms, but the impact one leaves on others, the respect one earns, and the relationships one builds.
Over the following days, the cowboy decided to make a small change in his life.
He would continue to live simply, but he would spend more time helping both the tribe and his own community. He taught skills he had learned on the ranch, shared his knowledge of the land, and encouraged others to live with honesty and respect. In doing so, he found a sense of purpose that went beyond personal gain. He understood that true wealth comes from contributing to the lives of others, from building trust, and from leaving a legacy that endures. The tribe's gesture of repayment had also given him a new perspective on time and patience. 14 years had passed between the day he refused the gold and this moment of recognition. In that time, he had lived a full life, facing challenges and finding meaning in the simple acts of work and kindness. Now, looking back, he understood that life often takes time to reward those who act rightly. The reward may not come immediately, but when it does, it is deeper and more meaningful than one could ever imagine. As the days grew into weeks, the cowboy and the tribe formed a rhythm of life together. They worked, shared meals, told stories, and celebrated small achievements. The bond that had begun with a single act of respect had grown into a lasting friendship, a connection that transcended culture, background, and circumstance. The cowboy felt a deep sense of belonging, knowing that he had been accepted, valued, and trusted. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, the cowboy sat quietly with the elder. "I never expected any of this," he said softly. I only wanted to do what was right. But now I see how much it matters. It always matters, he said. Sometimes the world takes time to show its gratitude. But your choice 14 years ago was remembered, and it has changed lives in ways you cannot see. You have given as much as you have received, and that is the true reward. The cowboy felt a quiet sense of peace wash over him. He understood that the gold, the gifts, and even the land were secondary to the lessons learned, the relationships formed, and the respect earned. He had lived rightly, waited patiently, and now he could see the full measure of what that meant. As the night deepened, the stars stretched across the sky, twinkling like tiny reminders of the endless possibilities life holds. The cowboy realized that his story would continue, not just in his own memory, but in the hearts of the tribe, the children who had grown up hearing about him, and anyone who heard the tale of a man who refused gold on Apache land and lived with honesty for 14 years. He understood now that legacy is not about wealth or power. It is about integrity, kindness, and the choices one makes when no one is watching. By living with honor, he had left a mark that would last far longer than any treasure buried in the desert. The bond between him and the tribe would endure, a living reminder that respect, patience, and honesty are treasures that no passage of time can diminish. In the final days of his stay, the cowboy helped the tribe plant more seeds, repair fences, and prepare for the coming seasons. Each act was simple yet meaningful. He shared laughter, offered guidance, and listened to the stories of those around him. In return, he learned lessons that could only come from experience, humility, and the wisdom of a people deeply connected to the land. As he prepared to leave the reservation, the cowboy felt a mixture of emotions. He was grateful for the gifts, humbled by the recognition, and proud of the life he had lived. But most of all, he felt a deep sense of peace. He had acted rightly when it mattered, lived patiently through the years, and now witnessed the power of integrity and respect firsthand. The elder placed a hand on his shoulder. "Go with our blessing," he said. "Remember that honor and respect guide you more surely than wealth or fame. You have given us your integrity, and we have given you ours. That is a bond that will never be broken." The cowboy nodded, feeling the weight and warmth of the moment. He mounted his horse, looked one last time over the land he had grown to respect and cherish, and rode away with a heart full of gratitude and understanding. The gold he had once refused had returned to him in a way that was richer than he could have imagined, not because of its value, but because of what it represented: honor, patience, respect, and a life well lived. As he disappeared into the horizon, the sun setting behind him, the cowboy knew that his story would live on. The tribe would remember him, the townspeople would speak of him, and the children who had heard his story would carry its lessons into the future. And in that quiet knowledge, he found the greatest reward of all: the understanding that doing what is right, even when it is difficult, leaves a legacy that time itself cannot erase.